I'm so grateful to be here. I'm the executive chef at Wanuskewin Heritage Park, and like a lot of you, because of COVID-19, I've been working from home. What does a chef do working from home? Well, my main project was taking all our menu items that were set to launch. We had a new menu that was going to be coming out March 30th, and changing them all to takeout and make at home family friendly meals. We hope to be back and online and serving everybody in person really soon, but we're looking ahead and thinking this is an opportunity to expand our Indigenous food reach further into the city. So that's one of the things I've been doing. Also phoning elders and getting their traditional wisdom and knowledge around food. That's been super fun. There's a duck soup video that we have on our Wanuskewin YouTube channel. I was able to chat with Elder Maria Linklater and get some of her wisdom on that. So you can check that out if you like. But just super glad to be here. So I'm actually not at the park right now. In addition to the pandemic, we have an amazing, this is the good part, a wonderful Thundering Ahead campaign where we are expanding our facilities. We have brought the bison back. So right now, my kitchen is a little loud and noisy. So I'm actually on Treaty 4 territory in Regina at the studios of Graffiti TV and Treaty 4 and homeland of the Métis. And I am part of that Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. You can see this Métis sash that it's kind of interesting. You're not supposed to traditionally buy your own sash. It's supposed to be gifted to you. And I had given my last sash away at a citizenship ceremony. And yesterday I thought, wow, I would love to show a Métis sash, the finger woven sash, during the show. And a friend just happened to phone me up and say she had fresh fiddleheads for me and brought me a sash. So isn't that lovely that she was able to do that? So we're going to be making a few different things. We've lost a bit of time, so we have to make up time here. We're going to be making bannock, and bannock is not a it's actually a fairly recent addition to Indigenous cuisine. And when I say recent, I mean in the last 200-ish years. So the baking powder and the milled flour was something that came with the fur traders, and named after the Isle of Bannock. But breads were made time immemorial by Indigenous people. They would have used acorn flour, cattail root flour, and other kinds of nuts and flours to make bannocks cooked over the fire. So just to try to go a little bit back to a little bit more holistic and fiberful original recipes, I use half whole wheat flour in my bannock. So we have 3 cups of whole wheat flour. We have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. You could do entirely whole wheat, but I know when I do that, my family goes, Mom, why'd you make it so healthy? So we just keep it half whole wheat. And then we're going to go baking powder. It's always a hot topic of what baking powder you should use. This is a big thing. So I use magic baking powder, but any baking powder will do. And we're going to go 3 tablespoons of baking powder. I know that seems a lot, but you don't want a flat bannock. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't. So we're just going to mix these dry ingredients up. I like to put toasted golden flax seeds in sometime, or brown flax, or whatever else you want to kind of pump this up. Dried or fresh Saskatoons are really nice, but if you're using fresh berries, you want to toss them in a little bit of flour first before you put them into your mixture. Otherwise, they're going to explode and make you have kind of this weird grayish purple bannock. Okay, oh, salt. About a teaspoon of salt. And then a little bit of brown sugar. So this is 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And so we're just mixing that. We're breaking up the brown sugar chunks. And I thoroughly washed my hands before I attempted this procedure. So when I make this bannock, you're going to say, that is not like any other bannock I've seen. And the reason is, my great Aunt Ruth provided me with a recipe. I had 2 little kids, not a lot of money, and I completely messed it up. Totally messed up her recipe. Did not have the money to throw it out and start from scratch. So I put it in the oven, just saw what happened. And it was really a little bit looser, as you'll see. but it came out almost cake-like and super high, and that's the recipe that I've been using since 2006 when I started my restaurant, New Ground Cafe in Birch Hills. So sometimes mistakes are our best learning tool. This is about half a cup of canola oil. Traditionally lard or any other type of fat was used. I like canola oil because it's just super quick. If you're using lard, you just want to kind of break it all up, or you could even melt it and pour it in. And then we're going to add, here's where the about measurements come in. So we're going to add about 4 cups of cold water. Now, just depending on the type of flour you're using, the humidity in the air, you might need a little more or a little less, but you're not going to wreck this. This is a really easy recipe. And I don't need this bannock. A lot of bannock you'll turn out onto the board and knead. We don't have to do that. We're just going to turn it right out onto the pan. I like to bake it on a round pan. Oh, sorry. Did someone have a question?
There is a question.
Oh, okay.
I've heard that bannock is also are they safe?
I missed that last part, Julianne. Bannock is also what?
I've heard that bannock is also fry bread are safe.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think what the question was is bannock is also called fry bread, and it is if you fry it. So this recipe, at the point that we would normally pop it into the oven, we would add a little more flour, roll it out, cut it, and then we'd fry it in oil in a cast iron pan or in a deep fryer or just in a shallow pot with oil. So that's the only difference. There's so many different bannock recipes. Some have milk, some have eggs even, some have yeast. This is the recipe that we use at Wanuskewin Heritage Park for our fry bannock and our regular baked bannock. So that's a good question. Another question is, where can you buy the best fry bannock? Well, I'm going to say Wanuskewin, but my favorite place to buy bannock is at the gas station at Duck Lake. There's a wonderful lady from Beardy's First Nation that makes it, and it's just incredible. I always buy a bag and say that I'm going to, it'll last all the way up to my dad's at L'Orange, and it usually lasts to Prince Albert, which is like 50 kilometers from Duck Lake. So can you see that now? So it's quite sticky. It's almost like a cake batter consistency. And if I was in a real kitchen, I would actually put gloves on and I would get right in there and work all the flour under. But since I don't have a hand washing center right now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to turn it right out onto the pan. You don't need to grease your pan because we have quite a lot of oil in the batter. So we're just going to turn this right out. I had to pick the heaviest bowl in the world for this. Okay, here we go. This actually makes a fantastic pizza crust too, but it really, really rises. So you're only going, you can probably get about, I'm going to say 4 12-inch pizzas out of this. Okay. So we're just going to spread this out. And you want it to be about 2 inches high. Okay. Spread this out. Again, this is a lot easier to do with your hands. Okay, you could take it to the edge of the pan if you like, but it doesn't make for riveting TV watching me spread bannock. So we're going to put this in our oven. And let's just, okay, put it in. In real life, it would take 35 to 40 minutes until the top is golden and crunchy, but the magic of television, here it is. So, that is our bannock.
The next question is, a number of years ago, at Wanuskewin, we cooked bannock on a stick over fire.
Yes.
Do you change your recipe if you cook it on a stick, or rather than frying it in a pan?
Yeah, we do. We have bannock bakes frequently at Wanuskewin, and this is the same recipe. We just add a little bit more flour, so it's, you know, so you're able to wind it onto the stick. and all you do is take it out into a little ball, so you're gonna portion it all out, and then you flatten it with your fingers. I like to use chokecherry wood. It just seems to add a really nice flavor to the bannock, and you kind of pinch it shut at one end and then just wind it around. You don't want it too thick because then you're going to have raw dough. So you want it about, probably about 3/4 of an inch thick, and then you're just going to put it on the open fire. It's going to burn. Like, if you don't burn your bannock on a stick, you are an alien. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just that charry, delicious taste and eating it over the open air. We have a dinner that we do called a Hamid Dinner, which is Dakota language, means night sun, which means moon. So it's an outdoor dinner, 4 courses, ingredients that I've foraged in the weeks leading up to the dinner, and the guests arrive, our interpretive staff lead them down into the Opimihaw Valley, and we go right up to the top of the valley overlooking the South Saskatchewan River, Saskatoon on one side, the valley on the other, and they start the meal with a bannock bake. And it's just a wonderful way to bring people together around an open fire and to do something that's been done for years and years and years. I always try to make a special butter for the guests to have that is seasonal. So we would have had our Hamid dinner actually next week, but we've had to postpone that due to COVID. But what I was going to do for the guests is a spruce tip butter. So I'm able to harvest ingredients from the valley, obviously not in commercial quantities, just for very special events and with proper protocols. So I won't go into the protocols on air, but if anybody's interested in those, you can talk to me. But it basically involves thanking the plant, each plant nation, before you start picking and offering a tobacco offering. I like to tell the plant why I'm picking it, what it's going to be used for. So last night I told these spruce tips that we were going to be doing an educational video for National Indigenous History Month with Nutrien, and I thank them for being part of it. So this is a spruce tip. Now you can use almost any coniferous tree as the needles are just forming. And if you say, how will I know if it's too mature? Because when you put it in your mouth, it's going to jab you in the gums. So as soon as it gets hard, the needles get hard, you're not going to want to eat it. So this would have been the first kind of little bit of vitamin C that was edible on the plains and in the north. So wonderful just to kind of revamp your vitamin C levels. It tastes like limes and lemons and Christmas all at once. And it's not hard to chew. So a lot of people pickle these, like modern Indigenous chefs pickle them. What we're going to do is clear a little bit of space, and these have been thoroughly washed, and they were picked in an area that hasn't been sprayed or anything like that. So we're just going to roughly chop it and add it to this salted butter. Adding salt to a compound butter, you're going to kind of have that crunch. It's not going to be that delicious. So we're just going to, and they come apart really easily. And if you want to save these for later, I might want to harvest a little bit more and save it for another dinner. I just put them on a cookie sheet, flash froze them, and then like individually, and then put them in baggies and froze them like that. Another part of harvesting and foraging traditionally is that you only take what you need. So last night I was at this gorgeous tree and it had so many spruce tips, and I just wanted to keep picking and picking, and I got this internal, no, you only need half a cup for this demonstration. You don't know who or what is going to come to this tree and need that sustenance, plus the tree needs it. So just following that inner, and sometimes a plant doesn't even want to be picked. Sometimes I'll go to harvest juniper and I'll just feel like the plant is saying, not today, Jenny. So then I'll just respect that and do something else. Oh, I love the color. Another thing that goes really well together is fish and spruce tips. Hello, did you have a question?
Another question is what are some other traditional Indigenous foods besides bannock?
Other traditional foods that go with bannock, did you say? Oh, besides bannock. Oh my goodness. Well, fish, wild game, choke cherries, Saskatoon berries. We always hear about pemmican, and it was just such an ingenious invention. There's actually a pemmican stash was found at Red Deer Hill, which is near Prince Albert, where I was born, and it was 80 years old and was tested by food scientists at the U of S, and it was found to still be edible because they'll grind the choke cherries with the seeds, which actually have a little bit of I'm gonna say cyanide, but there's some compound in that you don't want to eat a lot of, but it does act as a preservative. And then you'd mix that in with fat for bison or any other animal that you have harvested. Pound it out, let it dry, and then it becomes just a wonderful, fiberful, nutrient-dense food. What else? Oh, I'm gonna dive. How much time do you have left? We can do this. I want to show you this. So, bison traditionally would have been they would have just fed and nourished every part of people on the Great Plains. So, one way of dealing with bison was dry meat. So, this is a product called Bon Sawan, and it's a company from actually Leduc, Alberta. It's elder approved. Bon Sawan means thinly sliced meat. So this has two ingredients, bison and smoke. So it was just thinly sliced, hung up to dry over the smoke, and it would take, I think traditionally about 3 days, so someone would have to watch it through the night too. And look at that, it's just crispy. So then you can either eat that as a snack on the move, or you can rehydrate it in a soup. So dry meat soup is a traditional feast food. So the bison, of course, are a huge part of Plains culture. And the bison actually just came back to Wanuskewin Heritage Park in December. We had a group from Yellowstone National Park and Grasslands National Park, and we just had our first calves born at the park, one on Earth Day, one on Mother's Day, one on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Day, and the other one, the bull was born on a special day, I can't remember when, but so we have 3 female calves and a bull. So that's pretty exciting too. So this is my butter. We're adding a little bit of garlic. Okay, I like a lot of garlic. I love garlic. And a little bit of pepper. And what do you think about adding some juniper? So this is the juniper branch, and this is the juniper berry. So juniper is the flavor in gin. It's also the root word of my name, Jennifer. Maybe that's why I like it so much. Just has this incredible piney smell. There are certain times when you don't want to harvest plants, and I think that's some of the knowledge that has been lost with residential schools and colonization, is that it's not just picking a plant. There's the knowledge about when, how much. So as that comes back, I think it's just such valuable knowledge, and there's people that are starting to store that. There's a First Nation north of Prince Albert at Sturgeon Lake that actually has a traditional medicine pharmacy. So these are all medicines as well as foods, and we really want to respect that. So juniper, if you pick it while it's at a certain stage, so when it's just started to ripen, it's really high in a compound called tarpanol, and you don't want people who are expecting a child or with kidney disease to have that then. So you really have to be careful with forage ingredients too, and when in doubt, don't use it, seek the knowledge, and then use it. I bet someone's going to ask if I harvest mushrooms, and I don't, because I don't feel like I have enough knowledge for that. So I get my mushrooms, my Labrador tea, my fiddleheads, my fireweed tea, which is right here. This is fermented, dried fireweed, from a place called Boreal Heartland in La Ronge. So they're part of Keewatin Career Development Agency, and it's whoever can remember this term gets a prize. Non-Timber Forest Product Sustainable Forest Initiative. So they basically put ads out on Facebook, social media. They phone bound offices and communities and say, like, we're buying morels right now, and wherever they get the best response, they'll actually drive up there and pay a really fair price for those products. And it's a CFIA certified processing and drying facility. So Boreal Heartland, you can look that up, and they ship all over the world. So that's where I got this juniper. This I just picked to show you what the plant was like, and this juniper is from Boreal Heartland. So here we go. I think I picked the wrong tool for this. We're just mixing this in. And you can whip this in your food processor just to make it really creamy. But I want to show you a cool trick. If I can remember where I put my plastic. Here we go. Boy, I can sure make a mess fast, eh? Oh, I need a little helper coming behind me cleaning up. Okay, so we're going to scoop this onto a piece of plastic, which is not a traditional material, but it does work really well. And I'm going to leave a little bit out because I want to have some just to spread on my bannock. And then grab my gloves. I can take questions while I'm doing this process. Does anybody else have a question?
There's two questions.
Okay.
So first question is, I have lots of spruce tips in my yard.
Nice.
What other foods do they go well with?
Did I say fish? They go fantastically with fish, with roasted vegetables too. So if you take a squash, beets, it's not really root vegetable season, but just do kind of like a sheet pan roast, and then at the very end throw your spruce tips on, put it back in the oven. That's just fantastic. You can even use it in a dessert. So you could make a little sauce. They go really well with rhubarb too, surprisingly. So you could do a little rhubarb spruce tip compote. Now when you cook them, they're going to go less beautiful. So they're going to go kind of a khaki gray color. So just bear that in mind. They're not going to keep their, and when you pickle them too, they go a little bit gray, but they're still delicious. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm just spreading this out in a little bit of a cylinder. I'm going to roll it up. So this is what we, sometimes we'll serve we'll chill this and serve a little block of it right on top of our bison tenderloin for our Hamid dinner. So then you just want to kind of flatten it out. You can do a sweet butter this way too if you like. And then, okay, this is the fun part. Woo! Spinny, spinny. And then we pop that into our freezer. Chill it for about 30 minutes maybe. Take it out, unwrap it, and then slice it into beautiful little slices. And you can put it, it's nice if you do two different colors, so you could maybe do like a rhubarb butter, a rosehip butter, and then the spruce tip butter, and kind of alternate it on the plate. I'll just put this into my freezer right now. So that is our spruce tip butter. So delicious. Oh, another thing that happens in the spring, especially where I'm from, just north of L'Orange, is birch syrup. So you can tap the tree, it comes out clear, just beautiful clear liquid. It's mildly sweet, tastes like wintergreen, and then you cook it down. Cook, 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 cook. It takes 25 liters of sap to make 250 milliliters of syrup. But it's full of trace minerals, vitamin C. So the woodland Cree would do that and then just pour it on their fish, their smoked fish or their fresh fish. And it's just this golden color. It tastes, when it's cooked down, it tastes a little bit like molasses and maple syrup kind of mixed together. Speaking of maple syrup, we're going to go on to our main course. So how many of you working from home got a little thicker around the middle? I know I did. I'm trying to eat a lot more salads. Being a chef, I really never have eaten lunch when I'm working. So this was a really interesting thing during COVID, is to sit down and eat lunch every day, and to eat it at home. I was like, whoa, mind blown. So what we're going to do is we're making a Three Sisters salad. So the Three Sisters are corn, beans, and squash. So the squash traditionally would fix the nitrogen in the soil. There's a traditional pairing, companion planting, done by Indigenous people actually all over Turtle Island, which is the word for North America. And then the corn would grow up and the beans would grow around the corn. So we're going to make a squash vinaigrette for our salad. So instead of just having roasted squash, corn, and beans, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to make a power bowl salad. So get our bowl ready. And first we're going to put down a little bit of arugula. Why did I put that so far away from me? I guess I'm trying to get a workout. Normally this would be fresh local greens from Floating Gardens Greenhouse right near Saskatoon, but I was not able to get over there, so we're just using arugula. But use whatever you want. You might even have, in the next couple of weeks, you might have some lettuce coming up in your garden. So that's the base for our salad. And then we're going to take some beans. So I'm trying to get my hands on original seeds from the Six Nations in Ontario. But right now this is just a cranberry bean and a Romano bean and a black-eyed bean. Just cooked, nothing done to it, no salt, no pepper, just the beans. If you have an Instant Pot that you got for Christmas 3 years ago and you never used it, wonderful for cooking beans, super fast. So this will give us our protein. You could add some meat to this. You could add some thinly sliced bison or chicken or fish. Actually, salmon, smoked salmon would be great with this. But we are going to take some of our squash. So this was a butternut squash. Sorry, kabocha squash. Look how orange it is. Some people, I think, don't cook with squash because they think it's so hard to process and to work with. Well, it is literally hard. I have a little tip. It's not really a chefy tip, but I take the squash, put it in a reusable grocery bag, go outside to my front steps, which are cement, and just whack it down and it'll crack open. So you're not worrying about cutting yourself or taking forever to crack that squash open. And then I just boiled this. You could roast it, but because we have roasted corn, we're just gonna go with the boilie. And then I just drained it, and here we go. I love squash, so I could just use that as a butter right on the bannock. This is maple syrup. It's North America's only Indigenous owned maple syrup operation. So it's Awasabi maple syrup. You can order it online, and it's available at our gift shop, I believe, Monaskeva gift shop in Saskatoon, and at Saskmaid Marketplace in Saskatoon. So we're not measuring. I will figure out a recipe for you and send it to you, but right now, you're not measuring. And we do have pepper in our roasted corn, but we're gonna have a little bit more pepper. A little bit of salt, but we will be tasting this. The most important tool in the kitchen is your tasting spoon. We've got apple cider vinegar, a little bit of that, and canola oil. Could you use olive oil? Were you going to ask me that? You could, but I find it overpowers the flavor in this particular dish. The squash is quite delicately flavored, so we're not going to do that. Oh, I forgot I used all the garlic. Okay, pretend I'm putting in garlic. Look at that, about 3 cloves minced. And then we're gonna sweeten that with a little bit of the maple syrup. This is just incredible. I sit on a board called the Indigenous Culinary Association of Nations. So there's 5 of us chefs from all across Canada. And Cézanne Nottaway, who owns a company called Wattaway Catering in Quebec, northern Quebec, she was out gathering maple syrup and processing it this spring, and it was just fascinating how she brought her kids in to help her. And it just, like when I taste this now, I can just see Cézanne out there processing her maple syrup, and it just makes me happy, and I can almost smell the wood smoke and see the snow. So exciting. Okay, oh look at this, I actually did find a little bit of garlic in the bottom of the bowl. Yay! Okay, no blender surprises, that's all good. Oh, I wanted to tell you about what I'm drinking first. So here we have Labrador Tea. So it's also known as Hudson's Bay Tea or muskeg tea. So when I grew up in the bush, we didn't have TV till I was about 13, and we didn't have a phone, so what was a girl to do? So I would gather, forage, and this was one of the things that grew everywhere near our house. It's fuzzy on the underside, super high in vitamin C. I know it seems like everything I'm using is high in vitamin C, but it is. And anecdotally, and if you actually look this up, it's being studied to treat diabetes and other diseases, so it's just an incredible medicine. It tastes like green tea, a little bit more bitter, a little bit more tannic. So that's what I'm drinking today, and it calms you down and revs you up at the same time. So if I'm talking too fast, that's why. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna give this a little bit of a taste. I could just sit down and eat that. Okay, so what else are we putting on here? Oh, so the corn. I think I mentioned Turtle Island earlier, so I want to talk about our indigenous peoples in Mexico. So I was in Mexico in November and met a lovely couple, Nuno and Eduardo, and these are peppers from their region. So I just crumbled them into the corn, cut the corn off the cob. You could grill it on your barbecue and save a whole lot of trouble, but I wanted to do it in the oven. Sprinkled the peppers in, a little bit of garlic and onion, salt, and just a hint of the maple syrup again. Okay, so let's doll this up here. Put our corn on top. Jay, I'm going to send you this in Calgary. Hello Fresh, Indigenous style. And then, yeah, let's put the, okay, drizzle with a little bit. Look at the color, it's just such a gorgeous. It is lunchtime and I am not faking this hunger. Okay, delicious. And you can freeze this. So because squash are a little bit of work, even with my foolproof smash on the sidewalk technique, you can freeze this so you don't have to do that every time you want this lovely salad. And then wild rice. I could talk for hours about wild rice. I absolutely love it. So it's a huge industry for First Nations, Indigenous communities all across Canada, and I actually worked as a cook at a wild rice camp in 2015, which was amazing. A lot of work, and it's truly an organic crop because it's grown right in the lakes. It's a lot of work to get it out. I feel like it should be about $100 a pound. You go out onto the water, it ripens in stages. The rice boat comes, it has propellers on the end, so it's like an airboat, dumps that into the boat that you're standing in. You shovel it into 75-pound bags, haul that to the dock, haul it into the plane, it flies to the rice bun, and then it's dried. So, this is from Against the Grain Wild Rice, based out of La Ronge, Mayamut Lake. Oh, and I've puffed this rice. Super easy to do. You can either fry it in just a little bit of oil in a cast iron pan, or I take a non-stick pan, no oil, high heat, and it'll just pop. Okay, the gloves are coming off, people. I'm gonna taste this. So that's our Three Sisters salad. And what I've been taught as well is that there are actually 7 sisters: corn, beans, squash, sunflowers, sunchokes, which are also known as Jerusalem artichokes, tobacco, ground cherries, and then we, as the human nation, are included in that. So I guess technically there'd be 8 sisters. That's what I was taught. The teachings do vary. So I think that's another thing that is really important, is that our oral teachings are so important. And depending on our heritage and actually our interruption in our teaching, sorry, I'm joking on a little bit of pepper, but I will survive. All of our experiences vary slightly, but there are many common teachings. I draw my inspiration from nature, from the teachings of other people, from other chefs, from books. This is going to sound really kind of lame, but actually from what I have on hand. So when I had my restaurant, it was a chalkboard menu. Like I said, I had 2 little kids, money was tight, and I really just looked at what I had in my pantry, what I had in my local area, what people were willing to give me or trade, what was fresh and local. And I think this time right now during COVID, sometimes we went to the grocery store, you couldn't get the exact brand you wanted. Some of the fruits and vegetables weren't there, they were sold out. So I think it's really important, sometimes just like the balance, the best inspiration can come from what you don't have, not just what you have. But I'd say my number 1 inspiration is nature. Eating together, I find, is the thing that brings people together the most. In 2015, we had massive forest fires in my home community of La Ronge, and I went up to volunteer as a cook. And people would come in after a long day of either, dealing with animals who had to be left behind in the evacuation, or fighting the fires, or even just dealing with the paperwork related to the fires, and they'd come and we'd eat together. And someone would go home and get pickerel, or the chief townie cook Searson went across the street and got pickerel and blueberries from her freezer that they had caught the year before. And just sitting down, and it seems like when you sit down with food and you share with food, you become family. An Indigenous feast is an incredible experience. If any of you can ever experience that, I think it's just fantastic, and you just feel like the food, you'll never think of the food that you put into your body in the same way again, because everything has meaning, everything is spiritual, and everything is appreciated. So yeah, food and community and sharing and eating and cooking with kids and cooking with elders especially is super life-changing. My favorite meal to cook, this is not very exciting, but it's soup. Absolutely love making soup. I like gathering ingredients, seeing what I have, looking at who I'm going to be feeding, and putting together a lovely soup to serve with bannock. I also like getting a specific set of challenges. So when we have a client that comes to the park and they have dietary needs, or they want to highlight a certain theme, that's always a challenge because it gets your creative juices going again. But again, a little bit boring, but I love to make soup. I also love to make pasta, homemade fresh pasta. Sun-cooked gnocchi is my favorite new pasta. I'm going to have to sign off because the studio here has another live stream coming. It's called Couch Potato Lab, and it's an initiative with the University of Regina and the EYES program. So if you have kids at home that need to get some of their science curriculum in, tune into Couch Potato Lab, which is starting at 1 p.m. So I'm going to have to sign off here so the tech crew can shift over to the other room and help them out. But thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to answer any questions offline. I can give you my email address. I'm at Chef Jenni on Instagram, and I'll be sending you all the recipes for you to post in your internal newsletter. So thank you very, very much, and enjoy National Indigenous History Month and National Indigenous Peoples Day. And I hope to see you all out at Wanaskewan Heritage Park as soon as possible. The bison want to see you too. Thank you.